A little more than a year ago today at the Wilma offices, we started talking about our Women to Watch program. This had been for 3 years. It had been just an awards program once a year, and we sought to recognize up-and-coming women in the community. And we started to have a discussion about, is there something more that we can do the other 364 days of the year to help with this effort? So we started having a lot of conversations with local companies, and we decided to take on a mission that's really beyond what normally a media company does, to really try to be participants and more than just observers. So we developed a very specific mission to help develop more women leaders in our community, which means in businesses, nonprofits, elected office, and on boards of directors. And as Maggie said, this would not have been possible without our sponsors, particularly a lot of our largest employers, including Corning and PPD or PNC, and a lot of, you can see in the magazine, the founding sponsors that came on very early in this effort, and it was really, all we had was a piece of paper to show them, and we asked them, and we said, please don't look at this as a normal marketing sponsorship, to really look at this as an investment in your employees' development, an investment in the community. And we're happy that so many large and now medium-sized and small companies have come on with us for this effort. Next, this certainly would not have been possible without Maggie, who you just heard from, and Vicki, who you'll hear from soon, who are the co-leaders of Women to Watch. I don't know if you caught everything that Maggie said in terms of the initiatives, but we probably have already. This only launched in June of last year, and there's already 7 or 8 live initiatives going on, and it continues to grow. I also want to recognize all the employees of the Business Journal and Wilma. If you could all please stand up for a moment so you can be recognized, along with Maggie and Vicki. If we could please have a round of applause. I now have the honor of introducing our speaker today, Judy Girard. So I first heard, about 4 or 5 years ago, I heard that the president of the Food Network lived in Wilmington. I was like, well, I got to meet her. So managed to track down her number, and we had breakfast, and yeah, I had no idea what to expect. But I kind of thought, well, she's probably going to be kind of corporate, having been, in strips, these big companies. Well, that was totally wrong. She's probably the least corporate person you can talk to, and she's kind of difficult to describe. Probably the best I can do so far is she's kind of a magnet for interesting people and ideas. If you see what she's done in our community, if you see what she's done in her career, interesting people, interesting things just always seem to gravitate towards her. I'm going to give just a very quick bio that she started her career as a production assistant for Dick Clark. She's had a variety of roles around the country as director of programming at local stations, turning around networks, launching new brands, a varied career in mainly in the television industry. When she retired in 2008, the National Academy of Arts and Sciences gave her an Emmy for Lifetime Achievement to recognize her impact on television programming. But fortunately for us, she didn't actually retire. We asked Judy to speak at a Power Breakfast in 2013, and I had no idea at that point that she had any plans for our area. I thought she was actually retired. And I didn't bother to ask what she was going to speak about because I knew that would be pointless, because Judy's going to say whatever she's going to say. There's not any managing that. So little did I know at the Power Breakfast that she was going to announce that they were starting an all-girls charter school for Wilmington. And sure enough, because Judy manages to connect everybody and get anything off the ground that she wants to, that's going to become a reality this fall when the Glow opens its doors this fall. So we're honored today to learn more about Judy Girard, her career, as well as this latest chapter. She'll be interviewed by Vicki Janowski, who's the co-editor of Wilma, co-leader of Women to Watch, and the editor of the Business Journal. Please join me in welcoming Judy and Vicki.
Until Vicki says to talk. Of course, I'm going to violate that. I've never been in a town ever, and as Rob kind of alluded to, I can't keep a job, so I've lived in a lot of them. But I've never lived in a town where a business has done what these guys have done on this year-long news initiative. I think it is absolutely amazing and phenomenal. And today's turnout is extremely touching. I would like to ask all the men in the room to stand for a minute. And thank you guys for coming in. Now for the next hour, we'll probably talk about how we overflow you, so.
I did talk to a couple that are outside that didn't notice what the women were doing.
Really?
So kudos to you. But no, I think it's good, because when we'll talk a little bit more about Judy's career, I mean, the things that you've accomplished and the national brands that you've built up to household names that we don't even probably realize that she's been behind. I mean, there's lessons for their regardless of gender. I think that we'll get into it. So today, again, we're going to have a conversation with Judy about what it was like in the trenches in her careers and what it was like behind the scenes. Also talk a little bit about what it takes to learn some of the leadership lessons to be a television executive, or really any executive, particularly as a woman working from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, which is a very different landscape than even what we have today. And then also, as Rob mentioned earlier, Judy refuses to retire, though I think she's calling it her retirement, but co-founding the first single-gender charter school in the state of North Carolina and actually getting that open is no small feat, or what I would call a side project. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But this is also a conversation with you guys, so please feel free to text in questions, and we'll come out to the audience during the interview. There's cards on your table with the phone number. So it's also 910-264-8955. If you have questions you want to ask Judy, just put your name and your table number, and we'll come around to the microphone. Just to start things off with the icebreaker, to peg off of what Maggie had done with our tables, when we talk about who's the leader that you admire, what was your answer?
Ann Richards.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, many of you younger people in the room won't know, but Ann Richards was the governor of Texas back when the women's movement was starting up and whatever. And I'm sure as I start to talk, you'll get the feeling that I have really mixed feelings about the women's movement. I did when it was going on, and I certainly do in hindsight. But out of Texas, Ann Richards, Barbara Jordan, I mean, there was some Sarah Weddington, who at 23 argued Roe versus Wade before the Supreme Court. There were incredible women in Texas doing it, just doing it. And I am such an admirer of hers and what she did back in the 60s and 70s. And her daughters, Ellen and Cecile is now president of Planned Parenthood. And whatever side of the issue you're on, I think you have to admire her testimony in Washington on that issue. She did an incredible job. And those two women started the Ann Richards School in Austin, which we are now affiliated with. So it's come full circle. It's one of the one of 17 schools in the system we're going to talk about that. It's come full circle, and Todd Godby, our president, and I went and visited Austin not long ago and got to spend the day with Ellen in the school. And it's phenomenal. And it's just, you know, Ann Richards would be totally proud. And all of her values are and her daughters, which is good.
So you've lived all over the country since you started in the television industry in the 60s. In West Virginia, Baltimore, Miami, you lived in New York. And then when you retired in 2008, you came here to Wilmington. So how did that happen?
That happened because I was working for a station in Pittsburgh, and the Sappos were from Pittsburgh. And Judy and his wife moved down here many years ago. But the people I was working for that ran the station in Pittsburgh were part of that Greek community. And we used to come down here summers for vacations. So when it was time for Richie and I to retire, Richie wanted the beach, and I didn't want Los Angeles, he didn't want Florida. I said, this is town Wilmington, North Carolina, that we used to go to. So we came down, and within a day or so, we bought a condo on the beach. And I really was and am retired. I was reading John Grisham on the beach, very happy. And then somehow this school happened, and I want to recognize the people that actually built it.
So the mayor recruited you.
The mayor recruited us. He was not mayor at the time, but he did sell us the condo in less than 24 hours. Those of you that know Bill Sappho know he's a heck of a salesman.
So let me ask you, and so you had that television work, you worked at Lifetime, created Lifetime, original movie, by the way, for anyone who remembers back then. Food Network, HGTV, decades in the industry. Like, what actually drew you to television? What kept you there for so long as a career?
Well, this is kind of a sad story. I was flunking out of high school. I was a DNF student in high school. And I didn't stand a prayer getting into college, but my mother thought I should go to college. And Ithaca College had started a radio, television, film department, and they needed women students really bad because they wanted diversity. So I ended up at Ithaca College. And again, so much of the room is young, you won't remember this, but there was a woman by the name of Jessica Savage who was my college roommate when I got there. Jessica, many of you I guess do remember her. Jessica had already been working at WLND in Atlantic City, and we got to the college, and the college had a radio and TV channel on the cable system, and she said, this is going to be great, I'm going to do news, you're going to produce, it's going to be fabulous. And we went to the head of the college TV station and said, we want to do this, and he said, no, news is not done by women. And at the time that was true. There was not one female anchor at a network or a local television station in the country. Women could do weather. That was their thing, but you couldn't anchor. There was a really deep-seated belief, which used to come up in focus marketing groups, that people did not take news from women. And so her goal became, I'm going to break this. I'm absolutely going to break this. And we ended up doing interviews, and Cornell was in Ithaca, and she said, we're going to go do interviews with all this great talent that comes to Cornell. We're going to sell it for a lot of money, and we don't care about the TV station at the college. And we did. The first interview she secured was Bob Hope. And we sold it for a ton of money all over the country, and we actually put ourselves through school doing that. Long story short, when we got out of school, she started on the quest to break down the barrier and the ceiling of women anchors. And anybody, I so admire anybody that tries to change a system, because the toll of it is so great. It's so great on so many people, on the person doing it. And ultimately, again, Texas, very liberal, very different kind of state then than it is now. A local television station in Houston put her on the air and the ratings went down. And that broke down the barriers. And for years, you would see blonde women with a list anchoring local newscasts. Because that was Jessica. That's what she looked like, you know. She went to NBC News. She became the weekend anchor, first female ever on a network. And I think the toll of it all just became too much for her. One night she had a meltdown on the air, a total meltdown. Whether she was on drugs, nobody really knows what happened. And NBC put her on leave, and that weekend she and her boyfriend went up to New Hope, Pennsylvania for their dinner. And we're doing a lot of drugs, and the car overturned into a water thing up there, and they died a very slow and tragic death. It was very, very sad. She was 31, 32 years old. She never gets the credit for breaking that barrier down. We did a movie of her life when we started the Lifetime movie. She was one of the first movies we did called Wilma's Gold. To this day, the highest rated movie on Lifetime. Because I thought her story should be told. Her mother sued New Hope, got $10 or $12 million, which at the time, of course, was an enormous amount of money, and gave it all to Ithaca College as scholarships for them. So the number of talent that have come out of Ithaca College due to Jessica's death is phenomenal.
And what kept you in there for so many years?
Because I'm ADD. And it's like the only thing I could do. Yeah, it really was. You know what? And I think most people in TV that succeed in TV are ADD, because you have to have 40 or 50 balls in the air at a given time. You cannot get stuck in the detail. You just can't. And you can't get stuck in completing anything. So those are the people that run that work in the school for helping get there used to be in town Godfrey, particularly our president. Ask them what it's like to work with me. They're like, really? Do you ever bring anything out of the air? No, because I'm ADD. I love ADD. I think it's great. It's great. That is really why I stayed with, to be honest with you. It's a great field for those that are ADD.
Somehow it worked for you. So when you were at the Food Network and coming in, ratings were having issues, you came in during your tenure, was fastest growing network on cable. Emerald, that you all know was here recently to help out with the school and fundraising. You became
He's a great person.
Already had a show before you came on, but then became kind of the household name that he was in the 90s. So what was it like coming into that situation? How did you go about basically transforming the channel into what spawned the celebrity chef culture and really kitchen shows that we have now?
I told this story at the lunch, so for those of you that were there, forgive me to tell it quickly again. I had taken a job at Disney, which was a disaster, which we'll probably get into. Disaster. And the job ended, and so I was taking a year off, and I was walking Venice Beach because I was going to do things that I hadn't done before. There was this guy that used to walk the other way every day. And he would nod, and I would nod, and one day he said, well, I said, well, he said, you know, you should have coffee with me. And I said, why? I don't even know you. And he said, because I'm a really nice guy. You know. By the way, he ended up being my husband. Because I wasn't working, there was nothing to do. And he said to me this morning, is there a reason I'm not invited to this? I went, whoops. I got that. So we ended up getting married. But before that happened, I didn't want to be married. And I thought, okay, the only reason I'm doing this is because I don't have a job. Ken Lowe had started HGTV, and it was very successful. And he bought this broken Food Network, and they've been trying to turn it around for about a year, and they couldn't get anywhere. And he called right at that moment and said, why don't you come and try and run it and turn it around or whatever. And now you have to understand, I don't cook. I don't care about food in terms of fancy food at all. And I said, I don't know if that's a good idea. He said, well, it's in New York. I said, I'll do it. To get out of Los Angeles, right? So I get to New York, and that night, the day before I came in, that night, the previous general manager of the Food Network, who had come out, he was head of CBS News, and if you were running CBS News in those days, you were God. So he kind of had this God thing going on, right? And they fired him, which was like, he was not okay with it. So he took 8 by 10 pictures of himself and signed them and put them on everybody's desk that night and said, the good times are over. And I said, oh, this is the best, this is great. Right? So I walk into that, and the next thing I know, Emerald's in my office. I really didn't, I kind of knew who he was, but I didn't. His show, he was doing this kind of silly cooking show. And he said, what's your plan? And I said, I don't have a plan. And he said, well, you must have a plan, they wouldn't hire you. I said, no, I have no plan at all. To be honest with you. He said, well, he said, you know, I've been here a year and a half, I'm wasting time, blah, 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 blah. He leaves. The next day he comes in and he said, if you don't have a plan, I would suggest that maybe you talk to Judy, who's the only person that ever is doing a successful cooking show. And he arranged for me to go up and see her, and she was the most gracious, one of the most gracious people I've ever met. And I said to her, what's the ticket? She said, here's the mistake that we made. First of all, chefs are boring. They're boring. And they only care about their food. And they're so concentrated on their food that if you don't want to cook what they're cooking, it's boring. It's just boring. And she said, I would go for cookbook authors. I would go for other kinds of branded people. Maybe there's some chefs like Emerald, and she said, I think there's too many Emeralds out there that are both entertaining and can do the food thing. And that's what we did. When I got back, Emerald was taping one of his shows in the studio, and I walked in, and there was a studio audience and a band, and it wasn't on the internet. And I went, oh my word, this man has figured out how to make food entertaining. This is exactly what she's talking about. And so we activated him 5 nights a week at 8 o'clock, and then we built every show. Every show we launched after him at 9 o'clock. And he launched every show on the network. He really doesn't get the credit for building that network. I'm happy to take the credit. And Eddie and all that. But it was really Emerald that built that network. And it really wasn't until we went to the cookbook authors that it started to take off. That's when it started to take off. Because you can produce that too. Chefs you can't produce, they're really tough. So if you look at the network now, there are very few chefs on there. There really are very few actual chefs. So James Beard Association was never happy with us.
Yeah. Sure. Well, actually, one more question about your time there. But again, if you have questions that you want to ask Judy, feel free to text them in. We'll take a couple questions from the audience. So I wasn't going to throw you under the bus, but you just did.
Okay.
You ran the Food Network. You created, you revamp cooking shows, but you don't cook, you don't like to cook. You ran HGTV network, which revamped Home Improvement and all the shows we watch now. You're not married.
Never owned a house.
So one thing that's interesting about this is that, this comes up a lot, particularly in women's leadership materials and discussions. Sometimes there's a tendency to not want to take risks and take a job until you feel like you've perfected that skill or you are ready for that promotion. And clearly you did not let that stop you. I mean, you weren't a foodie, you didn't feel like, I can't run a food network because I don't feel or get food or any time to study up on it. So can you tell us a little bit about, were you at all nervous at all jumping into the deep end?
No, because the way I picked jobs, except for the Disney job where I made a mistake, the way I picked jobs was over the years getting to know myself and what my strengths were and what my weaknesses were. And I kid about the ADD, but it really is real. That, and I've never medicated, so it's really real. Just ask Todd, he'll tell you. The way I picked jobs was I a good fit? Did my strengths fit the culture very well? And the person I learned that from, years ago when I was at NBC, they brought in Colin Powell to do a diversity seminar. This was before it was Colin Powell. He was actually an IBM executive, and he used to do motivational talks. And he said there are 7 layers usually of management in any given company. And on the first 3 or 4 layers, it's actually an advantage to be a girl or a diverse or an African American or a minority because that's where the diversity lies. But when you get past that, you really have to look at that culture and say, am I going to be able to get past that? Am I a good match for that culture? Am I, and I think men do this so much better than women do. Do my strengths match that culture? Not do my strengths match what that particular job is, per se. And so I would pick jobs where where the culture was, particularly the scripts from Ken Love on the last set. The culture was one of collaboration, teamwork. I work so much better in a team than I do alone. I just can't. It's just not who I am. And that's not good for every culture. That was not good for an NBC culture. I lasted at NBC 6 or 7 years, and then one day realized, I'm never going to get to the 52nd floor because I don't match that culture. I just don't match it. And when I took the Disney job, I got sidetracked and took that job because of money and because of 5-year no-cut contracts, and I had a right team that was going in. Michael Eisner wanted to build against cable using the telephone companies, and it was a brilliant idea, and it should have worked. Because the telephone people already had your houses wired. Cable had to come in and wire. So even though cable had a head start, Michael really thought you could put it all together. I knew Michael was impossible to work for, as was Disney. But they had put us under Frank Wells, who was this phenomenal man of collaboration and teamwork and whatever. And I was starting on a Monday morning, and Frank was killed in a helicopter accident Sunday night. And so we reported directly to Michael Eisner. And we all lasted about 8 months. And then they paid out these big contracts. So it was nice to get the money and, set me up so I could meet John Grisham on the beach here for, but it was such a mismatch. There was nothing I could do to be an effective manager, particularly trying to change people's minds in 5 telephone companies whose culture is, and is designed to say no to everything. They called waiting, I think was the only thing they did for 10 years. They're just impossible to work with. And Michael Eisner, who was an extremely forceful personality. And so it blew up, and it was a really bad experience.
Okay, so company culture has been important to you then?
Oh, I think culture is everything. To me, it is everything.
Okay, let's take a couple of questions from the audience now and see what you guys want to ask Judy.
We have a question from Rhonda at table 14.
Thank you. Hi, Judy. Nice to see you again. It was a funeral luncheon, which was fabulous. I have girls in their 20s, and one is in the PR food hospitality business in New York. And I was wondering what advice you would give for young women who are in this field now.
Good question.
It has changed so much since I was in and around that. It is definitely, like most jobs, technically so completely different than it was. I think it would be the same advice that I would give people that, I used to mentor years ago. I would give the same advice to a 20-year-old today, which is know the culture, find mentors that can help you, and particularly in the businesses that you're in, particularly in the companies you're in. Men do that just automatically, it seems to me, and they're far more comfortable doing it than women asking other women for help and for mentoring, particularly women that are high up in the company that can really, really help you. I think that's the second thing. And again, and also develop a sense of entitlement about who you are in the job that you're in and what you bring to it. I think there's a confidence factor that makes up for a lot of things when women operate with a confidence factor. I think that's a very complicated world. It is one that is out of control, frankly, I think, because I still have good friends that are at PR agencies up in New York, and where they used to be able to control the press and what got out and how things happened. That is no longer true because of the internet and all the technology that's there. So I think it's a really tough field to be in. I think it's a very tough field to be good in, but I also think it's a very lucrative lucrative field for jobs right now, because everybody's got a PR problem going on. Every company, every individual, everything. Everybody's got one going on.
So when you talk about that confidence earlier in your career, and you were assuming once you got to managerial positions, probably one of the few only females that were walking into some of the rooms and boardrooms and meetings. Did you just naturally, because your personality, have that confidence? Was it something you had to work on?
No, I think it did kind of come naturally to me. I think Rob's words were so supportive, and I thank you for that, for Rob. But I think I'm not inhibited by men or men in power or situations. I don't know why I'm not, to be honest with you, but I'm not. And I think that goes a long way to, and by the way, nor did I ever try to be a man. I think a lot of women, because the cultures in companies are really very male dominated, certainly male defined. Your performance reviews, and I mean, everything is still male dominated in so many ways. I think it's kind of almost irresistible to go into almost any job and try and do what the guys are doing. And we're not. We're not. I think trying to adopt a male kind of persona, toughness, if that's who you are, that's great. If that's not who you are, don't try to fake it. I find that, I hope that was interesting, with Carly Wilma. I think she tries to be a guy. I think she's got this edge about her, and I think it just took her down, because in real life, I understand she's actually not like that. So I don't think it works to try and compete it just doesn't work. I've never seen it work for almost anybody.
Okay, let's take another question.
Next we'll hear from Cynthia at table 48.
Hi, thanks. So, Sandberg's perspective on leaning in, I just wondered if there are times in your career when you just couldn't just lean in and you had to take another route to sort of shake things up and make a change. And if you had some advice for those of us who are in male-dominated cultures, like nuclear power, when is the right time to really say no? I'm not just going to work harder than everyone else.
I think when I was most active in business, there was, of course, the women's movement going on, and there was kind of a revolution in the male-dominated cultures. But there really isn't, and this is why I'm down on it, there really is not much to show for it. There wasn't much that changed. I think the movement did accomplish a more diverse choice of jobs in companies, but it really didn't change much. I think since Cheryl did her book, and I'm fascinated by the millennial generation. I think the generations behind me kind of got stuck in this, what we told everybody is you could have it all, right? And they looked at their mothers trying to have it all and went, no, that doesn't work at all. I think this millennium generation is kind of interesting because I think what their message is we not only want a choice of jobs, we want balance in the workplace. We're not going to give up our femininity, we're not going to give up our roles in the family, and we want a choice of all jobs in the workplace. Can that change substantially by a group of women like this and a project like this over the next year? It certainly can impact it, but what I find most interesting about it and most hopeful about it is it seems to me the young men feel the same way. That it's not just women out there trying to push that rock up the hill anymore. I think, am I wrong about that? I don't know, I can't tell. But I think men want the same thing. They want balance in their families. You know, they want to be there too. And I think that's why Cheryl's book was so caught on and was so interesting is, you know, you can do it. You may not be able to have it all, but with the right support system, you can do it, and then don't be afraid to take the next step. You'll figure it out. You'll figure out how to do the job. You'll figure out how to balance the work thing. You'll figure it out. Now, having said that, when she lost her husband now, you know, I'm sure she's having a tough time balancing everything. She has to be. It's like a really hard, I mean, she became the poster child for how hard this can be when life changes, for sure. But I would just say, just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of anybody or anything. I mean, the most you can do is fail and move on to something else. You know, it's not the worst thing in the world. You just move on.
So talking about the millennial generation, that segues nicely into what's going to happen next with the future generation of women and girls when they hit the workplace. So you have been working now for a couple of years since I was mentioning, announced in our business journal on a girls' charter school. So the Girls Leadership Academy of Wilmington, or GLOW, will open this August with a full roster of 100 sixth grade girls, with the plan to add on class by class up to until you get to 12th grade, and the first graduating class coming in 2023. So my question is, where did this idea come from? Like, how did you pick out that this was what you wanted to devote your free time to?
The idea actually came from, as I said, meeting Ellen Richards at a Fortune magazine women's conference that I spoke at. And she came up and said, we've started this school, would you come look at it? When I got back to New York, the New York school, there's 5 schools in New York, and then there's like 12 around the country that are all affiliated and have been doing this for the last 20 years in various increments. And the New York school asked me to come up and do a brag night with one of the kids, which is when you teach them how to interview for college and how to do their elevator speech and so on. And I saw this not only incredible school, but these kids, these girls from really tough, poverty-stricken neighborhoods, graduating high school, 98% of them getting into college, and this amazing school and system of enrichment programs that support these kids to get through high school, get into college, graduate college, and it can be done. It just can be done. When the Baltimore riots happened a few months ago, and somebody said, a minister in one of the sound bites said, you know, the zip code determines the destiny of these kids. And I thought, oh man, we are changing. We are absolutely going to change that for sure. So I never really thought about starting a school or coming here to do it. I met George Miller, the chancellor at the time, his wife, and she was trying to help Snipes behind the mansion down on Main Street. And I said, you know, why don't you start a school? Why don't you start a book? I'm reading books on the beach. You start a book. And that's how it's, I mean, the next thing I knew, 2 weeks later, we were up in New York and we were trying to convince them to let us be an affiliate. And that took a while, and we ended up starting the school. It is, the hesitation they had to make us an affiliate is that this is the smallest city this has ever been in. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot of programs around the school day. It takes a lot to build an environment that these kids, girls will thrive in and get to college. And I just said, I don't know, I just think if you ask 2,023 women in this town to help with, you know, some donations and mentoring and whatever, because that'll be the first graduating class, I think women would do it. I think they would rally around and do it to help these kids. Because they'll get out. They'll get out of their zip code if you just give them a shot. So we've been running learning circles for the last couple of years and kind of getting the girls and their families used to the idea they're going to go to an all-girls school. And we have 105 girls registered as of today. So it's going to happen, and it's very exciting. There are a lot of people in this room that have supported us from the beginning, to which we thank you. We really, really thank you. And 2023 will be the first graduating class, and hopefully, knock on wood, we'll get them all into college again.
Well, let's talk about why an all-girls school then, too. This will be the first one in North Carolina. You actually go to the legislature and lobby for it. And the state charter school board had to approve it, and that was done. But actually, in the past decades, we say we've seen some Title IX rules about single gender classrooms. This has actually grown a lot in the country. There's a lot of research that says girls would learn better, girls from poverty areas will learn better in single gender situations. But then there's also reports that say those results can be mixed, or could, in some situations, have some gender stereotyping backing that up for girls. So when you were weighing all this and meeting with the network, what made you want to go with a single gender all-girls school as opposed to a charter school that would help the same poverty neighborhoods in the county?
Because looking at the other 17 schools, which we had done I had done for a long time, and we had done that the first year, you can create an environment for these particular girls, mostly who are first-generation college. You can create a safe and nurturing environment for them, both in school, around school, summer bridge programs, getting into college campuses, involving their families, getting them used to the idea that this girl can go to college, and we can make that happen. And that's not an empty promise. So I think it's this particular model of girls' school and the kids that we envision serving with the model that make this particular girls' school the right school for the right child at the right time.
Have the other schools in the network, the ones in New York and the other states, have they already had graduating classes?
Yes, New York's been in business 20-some years. So they've graduated, thousands of kids. The school, its first graduating class is out of Baltimore this year. St. Louis started their first class this year. But let me go back to Baltimore. Baltimore School is located exactly where all the riots were in the last few months. Every single one of those kids is going to college. Every single one of their girls in that graduating class is going to college. And that college is pretty well paid for, so those kids don't come out with debt that can never pay back. And the reason for that, it sounds so like grandiose, like how can anybody do that? But the reason is kind of simple, which is they set up a college-bound program where the college-bound counselors create relationships with those schools specifically who want these girls, who want the diversity, who have scholarships for that diversity. And the reason they get them in so easily is that the schools know those girls will finish. Because so many of them, even if those kids get to college, so many of them drop out because there's such a gap by the time they get to college. So it's really a phenomenal model, and I'm really pleased we have it here, and I hope it'll be a showcase for the city in so many ways. And I also think anybody, so many people, as I say in the room, have supported us. I think when you say to people, there is something very specific, and Ben does this all the time, there is something very specific you can do to affect this child's life, who's stuck in Creekwood and is going to be pregnant at age 13 or 14 because that's all she knows. She needs somebody to take care of her, and that's how it's going to be. Here's something very specific you can do to help that child have a life and choice. People step up, whether it's with money or mentoring it's just been a phenomenal project to meet women in this town and how generous this town is in so many ways. So many ways. And women are, as you can tell from this gathering and your project, women in this town are really happy to come together and try things. Whatever it is. And support nonprofits and support the school. And it's just been a really incredible experience.
Let's get a couple more questions from the audience then.
Our next question is from Melissa at table 12.
I was asking about work-life balance, because I think you kind of alluded to that.
I am the worst poster child for work-life balance. Since I could never figure it out. I never figured it out. That's why I never got married till very late in life. I just couldn't figure out how you all do it. How you do it with kids and, 24/7 on the job. And I loved working. I love TV news. I love TV programming. But it was 24/7. And those of you that, I don't know how y'all do it. Just there. Hopefully, I would hope that the work environments are changing to give you all support for more work-life balance. I think, by the way, just to go back to the women's movement, Laura and I were some of Gloria's Dynamos the other day, and I got to go up and apologize to her for not being so nice to her when I was at Lifetime. And because she was the symbol of so much that I loved what she tried to do and what that whole movement tried to do. But I think it isn't measurable today, and that so disappoints me. And what was it all for if nothing seemed to have changed? They came that close to passing a child care law back in the 60s, early 70s in Washington, a daycare law. And that would have changed everything. For whatever reason they were unable to get it done. I think that would have changed everything because women would have had a place to take their small kids and do their careers at the same time, and have child care and pre-K care and all of that. So because once, and I don't know if it's still, I guess it's still this way, when you start in the workforce and then you leave the workforce for 4, 5, 6 years, it's tough to get back there. The company's pretty much, you start getting ridden off. Don't you think? I don't know if that's still true today. Is that true?
All right, let's have one last question from the audience before we...
Next question is from Kim at table 37.
Hey Judy, I'm Kim Skaggs from Medac Health Services, and my question is, out of all the jobs you have, what was the favorite one you had?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think actually the Food Network turned out to be as strange as, because that was the job I least wanted. But I think it ended up being the most fun. First of all, the impact in the country, the food and supermarkets and chefs and everything was incredible. But mostly because it was such fun to work with chefs and cookbook authors and to turn something around so completely. Because we had no idea it was going to be that big. We had no idea kids would watch it. We had no idea men would watch it. It was going to be this little, slice of the network. And so I think it was such a great experience in so many ways. And it was a great job to go out on. It was a great job to go out on. So I think it would be that.
Thank you very much, Judy, for spending the hour with us and sharing some of your stories and opinions and insights on it. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So I was talking with Laura Hunter, the principal of Glow, and she was mentioning that when the school opens, that they'll have kind of a hall of fame where they want to showcase pictures and the stories of different women in the Wilmington area that can serve as inspiration for the girls who will be their students. And obviously, what better first picture to have up there in this hall of fame than of Judy Girard.
Oh, no, you're kidding. Stand on the board and the staff. Can I just recognize them? Because, come on, guys. They're an incredible group.
We've already discussed this. We're not giving this to you. We're giving this to Laura because we know that you won't hang it up.
Yeah,
so.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for letting me do this as your first guest. I love it. Very heavy, very heavy.
Yeah, so this was a great event to have as our first lunch event under the Women Watch Leadership Initiative. There's information about the initiative outside the hallways along with the tables from our partners and supporters, and also a table with information about the schools so you can learn more about it. So thank you again, and thank you, Judy.